Hey, family, what's going on? Welcome to In the Family Room. I am your host and creator of this space, Tracy Wade. I'm so excited to have each of you join us in the family room, in the virtual family room. If you don't mind, do me a favor, make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel. I am Tracy Wade. Tracy is with an I. And we're also on Spotify, iHeartRadio, as well as Apple. And you can find us by searching in the family room. Now, I'm very excited about tonight's discussion. And if you think you are kind of seeing double, um, there's a reason why. The guest that's on today is no stranger to me. We've been in each other's lives all of our lives. Our fathers are brothers, and so we are first cousins. And so I am so excited to have Dr. Jen in the family room. Dr. Jennifer,
Woo!
what's up, cousin?
Yes. Hello, cousin. Thank you for the
Are
invitation.
you?
And I just want to say I I am doing well, and I am celebrating all that you are accomplishing and how you are showing up in the world.
Thank you so much. Same here. Listen, one thing you all need to know is that I am so, and I've always been so inspired by my cousin. She's very accomplished, and we've watched this grow for, I've watched this since we were kids. When the rest of us kind of wanted to play, Jennifer was like studying and reading. She was doing all the right things, kind of, and we were not. We were trying to get in some trouble, but you have always been someone that I have inspired, that I have been inspired by, that I looked up to, and I've always been so very proud. And I am so excited to talk about tonight's discussion because we are in this series of the next chapter. And I wanted to bring you on because I have watched um, such I don't want to use the word drastic transformation, but I think it was drastic, but it wasn't. It was needed. And so we're going to really dive into kind of your journey. If you don't mind, just tell the audience just a brief little bit about yourself, and then we're gonna go from there.
Well, I'm not afraid to say a drastic transformation because it was definitely a drastic transformation and it was much needed. And I would say it was a powerful transformation. So, again, thank you, cousin, for inviting me. For those of you all who don't know me, my name is Dr. Jennifer Wade Seaton. I am a uh, child of God. I am a daughter. I am a wife. I am a mother. I am a board certified obstetrician gynecologist. I am an author and I am resilient. I am a translator. I am a motivator of women who, like myself, are those high achieving, purpose driven, faith filled women who seem like they have everything all together externally, but on the inside, there was something missing. On the inside, they were out of alignment. They weren't walking in their purpose and really living um, the life that they desired. And that was part of my transformation, creating this new life, stepping into the new chapter that didn't look like what I envisioned, didn't look like what my reality was, but I knew it was necessary for me to um, reinvent myself and rebuild in this next chapter.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I love it. And as she stated before, she is an author. This is her book, um, Becoming Beautifully Balanced. It is such a well written book. It is, there were a lot of things that I didn't know about that I was like,
Yeah.
I didn't know about. And
Yeah.
and they did explain some things that I did know that I don't do know about you, but I want to go ahead and
Hmm.
dive into our conversation together. Chapter 2 of your book is called Defining You. And you made this statement: the past has a purpose and has shaped us into our current self. What does that mean to you? Like, let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so many times our past, we may have regrets or we may have envisioned that things would have kind of shown up differently for us. But part of our past helps us become the person who we are today. So those lessons that we have to go through, those disappointments, those failures, those experiences allow us to transition into the next chapter, to the next iteration of who we are and who we desire to become. And so, in that chapter, you know, things happened in my life where I didn't understand, well, why did this happen? Or, why did I have to grow up this way? And, those experiences were challenging, but I needed to go through those experiences so that I really could walk into my full purpose and basically show up and impact those ladies, those high achieving women, or not necessarily women, although the book kind of focuses on women, but my story can definitely impact men and women. But if I didn't go through those experiences, what my past looked like, I wouldn't be able to share and inspire and motivate and encourage others.
I think that, one of the reasons why I found that statement so profound is that I think a lot of times we have regrets of the things that we have gone through. Like we condemn ourselves. Sometimes we don't want to forgive ourselves for what we see as a mistake, because of the outcome of the mistake. But I think that there was something else in your book, and I was trying to trace it in there, because I think that a lot of times we try to avoid, we wish, we didn't go through these things, but quite honestly, it's necessary. I just did a teaching a couple of days ago on purpose. And one of the things that I
Hmm.
talk about is that you can't go into purpose without first dealing with identity first. And a lot of us have an idea of what our identity is, but we don't. And this is from learned behavior. This is from what others have said. This is
Yes.
what others have spoken of us. Like with you, I know that there was this expectation for you be to achieve. And so when you put on all of that, it becomes like this, you begin to identify yourself based off of other people's expectations, and what you've picked up along the way. And so that dismantling of that can be very, whew, it's work.
Yeah,
It's work.
that's really good, and that's why I when I introduced myself, I wanted to describe I am the daughter, the wife, the mom, but those titles do not define me, and that is part of my transformation process of rediscovering, who Jennifer is and who she was. And part of that next chapter, when you lose identity, if you will, it's an invitation to reinvent yourself. I look at it that the loss of some of these identities or these titles for me, part of my journey in my next chapter was retiring from clinical medicine. So imagine, becoming a doctor, what, 4 years undergrad, 4 years med school, 4 years residency. Here I am, this OBGYN physician, and I'm deciding, okay, I can't do this anymore. That loss of that identity, because that's all I knew. I knew how to successfully take care of women, delivering babies, um, preventative care for women, operating on women, that was a big part of my identity. And in making that decision to go to the next chapter and transitioning, it was an invitation to reinvent myself and understanding that loss was a doorway to a new beginning. And so part of the transformation is rediscovering who you are. And those titles, those roles, they are important, but so many times we as high achieving women, we allow ourselves to be defined by those titles. And that's how we show up in the world. And when we don't have those
So would
titles
you?
anymore, we're like, okay, well, who am I?
So
Yeah, even now,
just so the
even now at this, go ahead.
no, I just want to. I want to give some clarity in regards to our audience. Prior to you going down this journey of rediscovery, how did you define yourself? Like, how did Jennifer define themselves prior to that?
Well, definitely, Jennifer defined herself as the dedicated daughter, dedicated wife, dedicated mom, dedicated physician. I define myself by all of these external roles. Like, what did I need to do to please or to help others? Like you said, um, there was an expectation. My mother was a school teacher, very highly educated school teacher, and she had a high demand on what it was that we were supposed to do. So, I've always done well in school, elementary, middle, high school, college, but there was a high expectations of academic excellence. So when you said, "Oh, Jennifer was studying," that's because there was that expectation from Cynthia Wade, like you better be in those books. Um, and so
And
I
it's so funny
defined myself
because
based on. Mhm.
I say it. I just it's so funny because when we would come over, like, yeah, I'm excited to see you and Chris, but your mom wasn't leaving without some type of we were getting some type of education. Like she would find a way. But your
Yes,
mom,
that
yeah,
was
she would
Cynthia
find a
Wade.
way. We were learning something that day for sure.
Yes, she was a true teacher at heart. Yes, yeah.
I love it.
So,
I love it.
those
Okay.
roles, that's how I define myself, by those external roles versus not really understanding who I was internally, having that internal alignment of peace and self worth. Because so many high achieving women, we put on this aura, or if you will, this persona that we have everything all together externally, but inside we're stretched thin, we're exhausted, we're disconnected from ourselves, we're dying literally. And
Yeah.
so part of my transformation was shedding, still embracing those external roles, but not allowing myself to be solely identified by.
Gotcha. Um. So in your book, you mentioned that 2009 was kind of a turning point for you. Can you talk about that period in your life? How it's and I it just what was taking place during that time in your life?
So 2009, I had my own OBGYN practice. Very busy, the only African American obstetrician, gynecologist in my area. I had to open my own practice at that point in time because I was fired. Now, I started working at age 16 at Montgomery Ward. I don't know if your
Wow.
listeners remember more. Montgomery Ward was right around the corner from my
Lord.
house. Yes, and
Yes.
I may have been 15, not 16. So I started my first job at age 15. I was never fired for anything. I was always a hard worker, like a woman of integrity. But I was fired in
Tell
2009
that.
from
I didn't
my,
know that.
yeah,
I did not know
yeah.
that. But
I did, yes.
what
I
is
was
it? What
let go. Yeah. Yes, yes. I was fired, but she graciously allowed me to resign. So technically I resigned, but I was fired. And it was a hard time. Basically I was working with two other obstetrician gynecologists, and one of the other physicians had a problem in her household with illegal prescriptions, and she cornered me, or had a medical assistant corner me, and had me sign I signed my name on a blank prescription, not knowing that she was basically writing prescriptions for narcotics and for her husband, and whatever was going on in their household. And me being the person of integrity, once I found out, I went to my employer and told her, like, look, this is what happened, this needs to be reported to the DEA. And I was fired. I was let go with no plan.
No plan.
The primary breadwinner in my house, even though my husband did work. Of course, he's a has a PhD in education, but I was the primary provider at that time, and I didn't have a job. We had a lifestyle, if you know what I mean. Like, we were living on a doctor's lifestyle. And also, this was the time of the recession in
Right.
2009, big housing
Yeah.
crisis, all of the above. So in that pain, I ended up opening my own practice, Genesis OBGYN, and subsequently that led to a transition in my life. So that was definitely a turning point. 2009, I was terminated from my position, but God had a blessing, even in the midst of the challenges, where I was able to open up my own practice.
I remember that, and I remember you and Greg calling me and telling me that what your plans were, and that you were opening this practice, and we just were so excited. But to read, I kind of had an idea, you know, looking from the outside in. First of all, I could not imagine the schedule you had at the time, and on top of that, you had two younger kids, and so trying to be the mom, be the wife, be the the great physician, not you know what I'm saying? Trying to
Right?
balance all of those things. Like, I can imagine you waking up in the middle of the night having to go to the hospital to deliver a baby. You know what I'm saying? And I also knew that Greg was commuting back and forth at times. He was still in New Jersey. And so
Yes.
what what was that like for your family life? Because I really think that this is important, because a lot of times when we're in it, sometimes we're not paying attention how it's affecting others. We know it, but we don't know it. It's about making sure that we can survive, because I think for some people, it's like we this is what we have to do. It takes a while for them to pause to reassess everything. And so, can you just kind of share a little bit in regards to what that was like? Because the kids were primarily with you.
Yeah. And like you said, Greg was still working in New Jersey, because when we moved down to Florida, this part of Florida, he could not find a job. And so he was still working New Jersey, commuting. He was a tenured professor, so he would have to drive back and forth. And here I am. I am pretty much, when he's gone, I'm with the kids alone, delivering babies. There were times where I had to wake my kids up. They were probably about 4 or 5. Sometimes I would have to wake them up in the middle of the night if one of my patients went into labor, and I had to take them to the hospital with me, and they would sleep in the call room. I would deliver the baby and take them back home. And this was before I had help with a nanny. There was a brief period where I did not have any help with a nanny, but I never had a living nanny outside my mother-in-law, but she had previously transitioned and was no longer with us during that time. So that was a lot for one person to handle. And like you said, in the moment, we're not thinking of the impact on others. Number one, the impact on yourselves, the physical, the emotional, the mental, the spiritual impact of trying to hold everything together and just to continue moving, continue going, because like you said, you are trying to survive. You're not thriving, you're trying to survive. And so impacting yourself emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, what is being sacrificed, impacting your loved ones, how that impacted my marriage with my husband being gone, how that impacted my kids where they had to watch their father leave and he wasn't there all the time and they were young. Like I said, they didn't understand why daddy had to leave and why he would come back, and why he wasn't there to tuck him in at night sometimes, why he wasn't there to eat dinner with us. And so in the moment, you're just doing what you have to do, no matter what the sacrifice is. And so it was definitely a challenging time frame, even when I was in the practice, but it definitely owned by the other OBGYN provider. But when I opened my own practice, where everything definitely depended on us, that was a whole nother level of stress, because there was no automatic paycheck. Like whatever work I did, that's how we ate, that's how we survived. That's how our bills were paid. So that added to a whole nother different level of stress um, that we had to navigate through.
I want to back up for just a second because something I just remembered something. I want to talk about that decision to relocate from New Jersey. In the book you said that you guys had not heard, like you didn't get a clearance from God to do it. What are your thoughts on that? And how important do you think knowing what you know now, do you think you make the right decision? Because it's pretty clear that you all moved because this was what you wanted, not necessarily what your husband wanted at the time, right? But it was what you were, it was about your your career. You know what I'm saying? And you wanted
Yeah,
to
yeah,
thrive. So what are your,
yes. And
tell me about
great.
that.
Yeah. And, that is definitely something that I look back. I wouldn't say there are regrets, because I really do believe we make the best decisions that we know how to at that time. But in my book, I did say that, we weren't in agreement. Greg did not want to move. He wanted to stay in New Jersey. He had a tenured position as a professor, but I couldn't work up there anymore. The malpractice was very high up there. The cost of living was high, and the salary wasn't that great. And like you said, it was part of me wanting to have a better career and make more money, if you will. But it was definitely a decision that was challenging, and I can't say that I audibly and I was certain that God said to move. You all need to get up to move. And it was honestly an area of contention in our marriage that we had to definitely work through and seek counseling, go to, therapy about, because there was some resentment from him regarding that, because he gave up his career. It was his choice to move, because he could have said, well, I'm not moving, but he gave up his career in order to be with his family. And that was definitely something that was challenging. Um, I look back and say, even though I did not have that okay, and I wouldn't necessarily say it was definitely the will of God for us to move, I do believe He works everything out for our good. Even when we make mistakes, or even when we move and He hasn't told us to move, or we make decisions that He hasn't told us to make, He still works it out for our good if we trust and believe. And so it definitely uh was challenging time, but I look at even with my situation with my mom, and I'm not sure if we'll get into that later on, even with the situation of her disease of having breast cancer and uterine cancer, um, the care that she received here, um, from the providers here, how she was able to move in with us, and how Greg was able to be her sole provider. I don't know if that would have happened up there. So I do believe that it all works out for our good. I don't know what the lifestyle would have been for my kids there. Um, so it was definitely, I can't say that I have regret about it, because and that's where I said the past doesn't automatically define our future, and that experience we had to go through so that we could be able to, talk about it. Even with us being marriage mentors, talking to other married couples, whether or not they're younger or older in their marriage, just to make sure that when you come to these crossroads that you are unified in your decision. If we didn't go through that, we wouldn't be able to speak through experience to speak into the lives of other couples. So even it was a challenging time, I'm not gonna lie, it was definitely challenging, but I do believe everything works out for our good.
I think that that is so good. And I know we touched on it before because of, not having regrets of decisions that we made um, because of, a lot of us, we were younger at the time, our mindsets, of course, we have more experience today than we did back then. And so my prayer is that for those that are watching and you might have a decision that you made in the past and it wasn't the right decision or, it wasn't the best decision, that you forgive yourself, that you give yourself grace. And I honestly, it's kind of like parenting. I know that for me as a parent, there was a period where I, could protect my sons from certain situations. But then there was a period where I had to let them go and I had to just trust God that God had them. And I think that our Heavenly Father looks at us the same way when we're making decisions that may not have been in his will, or we may not have even gone to him at all concerning the situation. We just decided, you know what, we're going to go ahead and move in it and not talk to him at all. But nevertheless, he is still with us in it, and he's there to catch us,
Mm.
and he's there to help realign or reset our lives back when the appropriate time comes. And so that's what I love. That's one of the things I love the most about our Heavenly Father, is just how sovereign He is. When we make, because I ain't gonna lie, I've definitely had made my share of poor choices. But I want
Right.
to
And the other
during
thing
that
I would
period.
say before we move on, I would say, not to judge ourselves. And like I said, I was making the best decision that I thought at that time, the 30-year-old Jennifer. So the 52-year-old Jennifer can't look back and judge the decisions of the 30-year-old Jennifer when I was like, okay, we're moving down here. The lifestyle is better, it's warmer, the pay is so much better. The cost of insurance is so much better. It's Florida, is, closer to some family. So, you can't judge yourself based off of those previous decisions, particularly when you're really making the best decision that you think at that time because
Yeah,
you want to improve and
agreed,
make those changes. So I just wanted to
agreed,
share that with your
agreed.
listeners. Don't allow your current version of yourself to judge the past version.
Agreed. Agreed. Now you talked about something. This was during the period of when you had Genesis OBGYN, and you were talking about the managing of responsibilities, like just your regular responsibilities. Like, you shared an example of forgetting to pay the electric bill. Can you just share with the
Yes.
audience
Yeah.
for those that, because I understand that. I understand that because I reached that
Hmm.
point in my life, where life, like my life had got so unbalanced. I was working sometimes I was doing like 12 to 15 hours at work. And then on top of that, I had other responsibilities with the church, the ministry I was part of. And then I was running a nonprofit. And then I had engagements that I had to go to, like galas and dinners and all of these things, right? And there were just times where I just couldn't focus. I just couldn't. It was harder to
Right.
focus. I'll sit at my desk, and I'm gonna be, if I could be very transparent, I'm experiencing it now as well. Like, there are times when I have to be like, girl, like, I have a stack of just bills, not regular bills like everyday bills, but things that I need to call and get answers on, and just to the managing of all of that, right? Um, how do we get there? What are we doing to allow ourselves to get there? And what do you have to say to the mother, the wife that is doing all the things to the point where they can't even manage their just regular responsibilities? Just pay the light bill. Just pay the light bill.
It's Just a Season, Not a Sentence, is a book of wisdom to help navigate and shift your perspective when going through life's journeys. Tracy illustrates God's plan of purpose by sharing her personal experience of God's promises remaining true even after divorce. Whatever you may be experiencing at this time, remember, it's just a season, not a sentence. You can embrace the purpose over the pain.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up because it was that share in the book was, I mean, I could laugh about it now, but of course, in the moment, it wasn't funny. At that time, I had a young lady who was my nanny, and she would come and take the kids to school, pick them up, while I was working because Greg wasn't home when he was away. And managing everything, the practice, particularly when you're the owner, you have other people's livelihoods. You're responsible for their livelihoods, like you have to pay everybody. All of the responsibilities, making sure that are in compliance with all regulatory guidelines, making sure your patients are happy. Like, it was just so much. And I was still at work, and my nanny called me and she said, Miss Jen, the garage won't open. I'm like, why won't the garage open? Like, I don't understand that. Like, why wouldn't the garage open? I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, it won't open. So I, stop what I'm doing and I head home, and she's right. The garage wouldn't open, and open the door, no lights. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot to pay the light bill. Not because I didn't have any money. It was just, I forgot. Like, I was just all over the place. Like you said, the chaos. And so I think we get to that position because, number one, we want to be everything for everybody. Sometimes we have a hard time saying no. Sometimes we overextend ourselves. Sometimes we're not good at prioritizing what's important and what's not important. What can we delay? Because as part of the high achieving, um, purpose driven woman, sometimes we want to have this idea that we have to be perfect about everything. And that's one of the things that I had to let go, like being this perfectionist, having to be in control over everything, grow managing everything. And we are afraid to delegate. That was definitely something that I had to, and I'm still learning how to do that. I'm much better at it, but delegating others to help and not being embarrassed to ask for help. And then when you ask for help, not judging how others may help you. And I'll give an example would be like when I would ask Greg to do something for the kids. Like he may do it, but it may not look like how I did it. And then I would be like, well, you didn't do it the way, that's not how it's supposed to be done. Like when it came to the kids, like you're not doing it right. I mean, just the way that he accomplished the task looked differently. And then when you try and go behind and you micromanage, like I said, I'm still working on that. I'm better, but I think that's just inherent as to who I am. Like you have to be someone that, in order to be an obstetrician gynecologist and have emergency situations come about, like you have to be somewhat of a micromanager and somebody to take control. So, but you have to, be able to turn it on and off. Like it can't encompass who you are. And so, like, you got to let go sometimes. You can't be in control and wanting to do everything. And so, high achieving women, there's a place for that. When we operate from that aspect of who we are by default, that's where the problem is. That's when we're doing too much, the chaos is too much, and we're operating from this perfectionist, this control person by default, and we're not asking for help, or if we ask for help and the help comes, but it doesn't look like how we want it to. We have to let some of that go. So I think, we have to ask for help. We have to do a better job at understanding what our priorities, what can we accomplish today versus, maybe putting some things on the back burner and dealing with that later. And just making sure we are honoring our time and we're not wasting time. We're being efficient. And even in those moments of when we have a lot going on, not being afraid to take a moment to sit, to pause, to allow ourselves to be restored. And I went to a conference earlier this year, and the title was Power in the Pause. There's power in allowing ourselves to pause, to sit back and relax and to breathe, to breathe.
I love it.
So when we find
I
ourselves in
love
these
it.
situations, allow yourself to delegate, ask for help, and to breathe.
I love it. Because I could definitely relate. I think um I had someone on in season 2 of the podcast. A childhood friend of mine, her name is Dr. Tanisha Lawrence. She's a doctor as well. She's based in New York. But she wrote a book called Ditching Abandonment. And one of the things that she talks about in regards to like one of the signs of it is perfectionism. And that was something that I definitely battled with. I had this um I needed to be perfect, and only in therapy I realized that the root of it was because my dad left, my mom. And so in my head, if I'm perfect, he won't leave me. And this thing carried on in the way that I parent. It carried on, the way I ran my household. It carried on like everything had to run a certain way. And so I had to I had to get to a place where now it's to the point where I have to watch myself because sometimes I just don't care. I've learned how to really let
Right?
go of a lot of stuff because
Yes.
it's unnecessary stress. We're stressing ourselves out, and it's so
Yes, we are.
unnecessary. Like you were saying, like really prioritizing what is important, what can wait, what you were sharing about in regards to when we delegate certain things for someone else to do and it doesn't look like Alicia just graduated from NYU, my niece, Andra's daughter. And
Yes.
I hosted a brunch for her, and I had someone there that was helping, and she was doing like the centerpieces. It didn't look the way I wanted it to look, but I had to make myself not go behind
Yes.
her to correct it.
To
It
you, because I know that was a big decision.
was hard. It was very hard because I was just
Yes.
like, this is not what I envisioned, you know. But it's picking and choosing what is important to the point, where you're not losing your mind over it. Like it's not worth that. If someone's dying, that's one thing. But if it's a freaking centerpiece, just let it go, right?
Let it go.
With
Right.
that, I'm gonna segue right into, and this is gonna segue right into what I wanted to talk to you about next, and it has to do with with this showing up in your body in the form of panic attacks. Can you talk to me about that? Because I
Yes.
think that that is another way of our bodies signaling that there is something that we need to shift. There's something that we need to change, um, because our bodies are like, oh, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. So if you could just kind of talk to us about what your experience was with that.
Yeah. So, I was a few years into owning the practice. My mom transitioned and it just really became overwhelming, processing the grief of losing my mom and just life and, just being burnt out. I was burnt out, having my own practice, Greg traveling back and forth, raising the kids, just life. And I knew that God told me, hey, you need to start an exit strategy out of clinical practice. And immediately I was like, to do what? What am I going to do? Like, all I know is this is what I know. Like, I know how to take care of women. Like I said earlier, I can deliver babies, I can operate on women, help women prioritize their care. Like, what else I'm going to do with this medical degree that took me 12 years to obtain? Like, what am I going to do? And, I just wasn't listening. I was listening, but I wasn't. Went to a few conferences of non clinical careers for physicians. And so God had dropped that in my spirit, but the fear was holding me back because I couldn't see my way through. And so I just kept moving, pushing through, even though I was burnt out, just kept pressing forward until the panic attacks happened. And, I'm a physician and take care of women. I know what it looks like when women come into the office and telling me, hey, I'm experiencing anxiety, depression. I was able to, navigate them through that, figuring out, okay, what are the next steps? What therapy, what counseling? Do we need to try medications? I'm able to, help my patients. But who knew I was going to have panic attacks because, I had it all together, even though my body was finally like, girl, okay, I'm going to get your attention one way or another. So, I remember it clear as day, the first one. I was in bed. I just come home from delivering a baby. It was probably like 11 o'clock at night. I was resting, trying to wind down. And then I had this sudden sensation that I was going to die. Like this over, and when my patients would tell me that, I could, you know, sympathize with them. Excuse me, empathize with them. But now I truly understood what they were experiencing because when I say I felt like I was going to die, I felt like I was going to die. I got up out the bed, went to Greg, and as I was standing, like I literally felt like the blood was draining from my body. Like I had this sensation that I was losing blood, and I began to lose consciousness. I didn't pass out or anything. I didn't experience a syncopal episode, but it felt that way. And it seemed like that lasts for several minutes. It probably was less than 1 minute, but I felt like I was dying that day. And I wasn't stressed. Like literally, I was on my way to bed and I'm relaxing. So I wasn't thinking about anything. It was totally unprovoked. And I'm like, oh my God, I just had a panic attack and this is crazy. And then the second one happened on an airplane. I was on my way to fly and see my brother, and literally I could not breathe on the plane. It was out the blue. And so that was my body telling me, Jen, you cannot do this anymore. And we as women, our bodies will tell us when we need to shift. Our bodies will speak for us before we even utter anything verbally. Our body will give us signals, warnings that something has to change, no matter how that looks. For me, it was a panic attack. For someone else, it may be chest pain, whatever it is. Like our body will tell us when something's wrong and we need to make those changes. So, that's when I had the first panic attack. Probably, I think it was like August. By December 31st, I closed my practice that same year because I knew
Wow.
that I could not keep going the way that I was going. And if I didn't do it for myself, I needed to do it for the people I love the most, my husband and my kids. I wanted to be around for my kids. And I wanted to be able to experience um empty nest empty nest life with my husband, like being able to get up and go. Like I wanted to be around for this
Yeah.
moment where we could enjoy being empty nesters. And so
Yeah.
like I didn't just do it for myself because I couldn't go on. I had to do it for those that I love. And so to your
Yeah.
listeners, I want you all to understand when your body begins to speak to you, you have to listen. You can't ignore the symptoms. You can't ignore, like I couldn't ignore the panic attack. I didn't have a history of panic attacks. Like my body was telling me, hey, Dr. Jen, fire, 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 red light, stop. We can't keep going. So I want your listeners to understand when your body is speaking to you, you need to listen.
I remember when you told me you were closing the practice, um and I understood it. I really did. And what happened, what I saw was this quick shift with you. You started making some drastic changes at that point. And I think that is, and I have two other things that I want to touch on before we close out. And I believe that this shift was part of that, and that's self-care. A lot of people don't know and understand what self-care is. What is it? Why is it important to implement in our lives? If you could just talk, if you could speak to us from the clinical perspective, but also just as a as humans. I want to say as women, but just as human, because I think men need self-care as well.
Yes, absolutely. Men as well. And like I said, my book is not just for men, for women, it's for men as well. One of the key components to my book was self-care is not selfishness, it's self-preservation. And so many times I'm talking to the women, we think self-care is going to get the massage or going to get our nails done or going to, um get our hair done, all of these external things. And those are all important. We have to take time to experience those activities that allow us to stop and to breathe. But self-care is really saying yes to you. Like, what is it that you want to do in your life? Self-care really begins internally, choosing yourself, knowing how when your body is telling you, hey, we need to make some changes. Self-care is being willing to make those changes when you don't know what the next steps would be. Because when I closed my practice down, I thought I had a job lined up, and I did not have a job lined up. So self-care is moving forward and having faith when you don't know what the next step is going to look like, what that next chapter is going to look like. Self-care is choosing you in spite of. Self-care is pouring into yourself no matter what, even no matter what that looks like, taking care of yourself and not just taking care of others. And I think the biggest example of that was witnessing what happened with my mother and her transition. Like, she took care of so many people, loved on so many people, helped so many people, changed the lives of so many people, was just a brilliant woman. But because of her own hurt, she didn't take care of herself. When she began to have those physical symptoms in her body indicating that she had breast cancer and uterine cancer, the fear gripped her and she wasn't able to choose herself. So self-care is choosing yourself in spite of the fear. Self-care is pouring into yourself so that you can continue to pour into others, so you can continue to show up for the people you love, so you can continue to show up for your community, so you continue to show up for your job that you love. That's what self-care is. Choosing yourself despite
Yeah,
the fear.
right, right. I always talk about, I used to say this to Andrea, and I've shared it with so many, the importance of putting the oxygen mask on ourselves first before uh, we can put it on
Yeah,
someone else, to pour out. You can't pour from an empty cup. And so, really, to be
right.
honest, this is what I have come to know when it comes to pouring into others. Um, Unless you're full, they're supposed to get the overflow. They're supposed to have the overflow. They're not supposed to have, you know, what's in the cup. They're supposed to get what's out of the cup. Something that
Yes.
your coach shared a long time ago that I never forgot. The Varian Brandon. Um,
The Lady V. Yes.
okay. She said something that sticks with me today. She said, if you cannot walk out the door as your best self, you need to stay home. That never
Yes.
left me. That never
Mm,
left me.
that's a
If you
word.
can't be, if you
Yes.
cannot show up as your very best self, you need
Mm,
to stay home. And
good
it
word.
stuck with me when she said it because I had to have been
Mm-hmm.
around 30, probably about 32, 33 when I heard her tell me that. And I'm 50 now. And when she shared that with us, and I heard it, but I didn't begin to really truly implement it until like my 40s, my mid 40s. As a matter of fact, a couple of weeks ago on a Sunday, my body was like, "Stay home. You need rest." But I
Right.
had church. I didn't go to church,
Right.
and guess what? I'm okay with that
Mm-hmm.
because I'm going to listen
That
to
was
my body.
okay. Exactly.
I was okay with
Right.
it. It's like if I cannot be my best self, because I think a lot of times we push through, especially those that have obligations and things like that, like whatever it is, that the
Mm-hmm.
space that you're in where people look up to you, or you are an
Yes.
influencer, or you are influential in the area or in the circles that you run in, and we feel like we have to show up and be in place, but we're not our best selves. And so, either, like, one of the things that I've learned to do is, like, especially if I know I have a speaking engagement, I've learned to just take time for myself a couple of days prior to prepare not just my spirit, but my body for what is about to take place. And then
Physical.
when I'm done, I take time off. I'm learning I got to take time even after that. And so this is all part of the self care, I believe, of really paying attention to what you need as an individual, as a person, and not ignore it. And so I wanted to say thank you so much for shedding light on self care and sharing that with us.
Well, thank you. And thank you for bringing up that oxygen mask principle, because it's just important for us to know that we cannot pour into others when we abandon ourselves. And one of the principles that I think about is that all care has a cost, but no cost is more expensive than self neglect. Do not neglect yourselves emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, all of who you are, your whole self.
Oh, we're getting ready to close, but before we close, who is this new Jennifer now? Who is Dr. Jen now? Like, what does your life look
Girl,
like?
Dr. G.
What brings you
Yeah.
what brings you joy? What are you doing? Like, what does your life look like now? That like, what are the changes that you implemented, and like, what has this new chapter looked like for you? Because that's the people want to
Yeah,
know.
Dr. Jen 2. Yeah, Dr. Jen 2.0 can be a little unhinged sometimes. No filter. And that may come with being a 50-year-old black woman. That you just go say what you go say.
And
You
wait,
know, this you have lived life.
and the fact and the fact that you're away too, so that don't help. That don't help.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. That absolutely. But Dr. Jen is just really um enjoying the life that she has created. I just think when I retired from clinical practice, one of the things after being home, because I began to work from home, being present with Layla and Ryan, because they were entering, one was in high school, the other one was on their way to high school, and I had missed out on so much when they were younger because I had to work. So I wanted to be present with them. I wanted to be present with Greg, because here's the thing. We're empty nesters now. A lot of couples, and particularly moms, are so guilty of this. We pour into these kids and we lose in sight of who we are. If we're married, we don't prioritize our husbands. So when they left, we wanted to make sure that we still liked each other and loved each other. Because, sometimes
All the way
couples, when
up.
the kids are gone, yeah, you looking at each other like, do I really like you? Do I really want to stay married to you now that these kids are gone? And so now Dr. Jen is traveling. So I didn't have a chance to travel when I was younger because I was in school, then had the kids, and had this practice. So I'm traveling the world with Greg and with friends, writing this book, taking opportunities to mentor the other married couples, and just really showing up in a different way that I did not have the opportunity during my earlier years, my 20s and my 30s, and just being a lot freer and laughing more. Like, I didn't laugh a lot when I was younger, and just letting
Yeah,
loose
she
and
didn't.
not micro. Okay, we got no, I did not. Just embracing this different version of who I am. Dr. Jen 2.0. You gave me this hashtag, catch Dr. Jen, because I am always on the go. I remember you when you shared that, like, catch Dr. Jen. So that's
Yes,
who
yes.
Dr. Jen is now. Just really living life and creating the life that I desire.
Well, you do it well, cousin, and I'm so proud. And I'm just so proud that you, and I think I know your mom would be proud as well that you have evolved to this, and the growth that has taken place, the fact that you are living life, like you're not just existing in it and
Yes.
doing life, but you're living it to the fullest. Um, and so I'm so proud of you. I really, really am. I just want to say thank you so much for this time, for taking time out of your schedule to be with me to talk about the next chapter. I believe that this is a very well needed conversation that many will be able to glean from. They will be able to assess. That's my prayer, is that there will be an assessing that is taking place in the lives of individuals. And if they see that they need to start making some changes for a better life and for that next chapter, that they will not prolong it and not be afraid of it, but move into it. Any last words?
Well, cousin, thank you so much for extending me this opportunity to share my journey. I really appreciate it. I know what I went through. I wasn't the only person, only woman, and I won't be the only woman. And so I appreciate you for having this platform and you utilizing your voice and your story and to bring in guests such as myself so that we can speak to the masses and understand that our story is just not for us to look back and say, oh, I did this. Like, there's a demand on us to share with others to help society. And so kudos to you, cousin, for your podcast, for your book. You're doing the thing, and I love you.
All right, family, that's it for this episode. We will see you again back here in the family room next Sunday. Have a wonderful week. God bless. I love you.